Sometimes you just have to be willing to get out of your comfort zone and say yes to new things. And in this episode, as we talk to Jesse, we're going to hear from him that over the years, that has been a banner over his life and a guiding principle in some of the creative choices he has made as he's moved from worship director, worship leader to entrepreneur, business owner. And all along the way, you can see the evidences of God's kindness. So join us as we talk through some of these experiences and hear this amazing testimony. All right, let's get going. Jesse, good to see you today.
Good to see you, Matt.
Not like we haven't already been hanging out for a couple hours, but
right.
But here we are.
Right.
Here we are. And I'm so excited that we get to have you here today and get to learn from you and listen to you. We talk about this stuff all the time, so it just makes sense that we would, transition to actually recording it for once.
Right. Yeah. This is a weekly podcast that we're finally recording.
That's right. This happens every week. So if you're ever in Phoenix and you want to hang out with Jesse and I while we talk about this stuff anyway, come hang out with us.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah. You're welcome to join us. In fact, I think my friend Malik wants to join us one of these weeks.
We'd love to have him. Well, would you, for those listening, what I really want you to hit on is, we're kind of talking about church outside, or not church outside, but ministry outside the walls of the church, and what you've learned, what you've experienced. And within the church, you spent a lot of time as a worship leader, worship director, in the music scene. So can you just talk us through, your testimony, what you did, what you learned, the positions you held, and kind of the bands, the music, all of it?
So primarily, I was a bass player. Mm-hmm. As you know, you watched me play a bunch of times. But in my young adult years, in my early years of being married, my wife and I got to be a worship director for a church, and I actually led worship once as a singer. Keep in mind, I'm a bass player, not a singer. And it showed, but it was, but you know what? There were a couple of people that were like, wow, I thought you had done that before. So apparently I at least had enough confidence in what I was doing to portray the idea that I've done it before. But ultimately, as a teenager coming up in the church, I came from a family where I was the only one that went to church. I was blessed by my next door neighbor being a youth pastor and having a son close to my age. And we were able to basically get really bored because in the mid-90s, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have anything. So we would just sit around on the weekends going, what do we want to do? And I'm pretty sure that it was a Saturday of boredom where my friends and I were like, let's start a band. And so, my friend Matt got a guitar. My friend Brady got a drum set, and they were the pastor's kids, senior pastor's kids and youth pastor's kids. And there was me. Mm-hmm. And then we recruited a friend, and eventually we started playing music because actually it took a really long time, or at least my perception is that it took a long time for my parents to acquire a bass guitar for me. And so I got the bass, didn't know how to play it, and the next day we had practice. And then all of a sudden we were the Hot Church youth band.
Right.
And then we were on the road, and then we were playing, 8 days a week, either rehearsing, playing at other youth services, or there's a trash guy outside. It appears.
That's right. We'll get to that later. We're in a mobile,
or some kind of semi.
We're curious. In a mobile podcast studio, which we're going to get to.
We are going to get to that.
But yeah.
So
you formed a band.
We formed a band. Mm-hmm. We played together from, I believe, 1997 to 2007.
Mm-hmm.
And then we went off our separate ways and all playing in different capacities in different ways. And I ended up working in a church plant with my former youth pastor, who then basically, recruited me
Mm-hmm.
to be the worship director. And we started doing that. And I'm very blessed to have had that season. It didn't end well.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I did work for the youth group
Mm-hmm.
for a while as well. And that's actually how I met my wife. And so we were, working at the church together, not yet dating, not yet in a relationship. We were young and we became close, and then it turned into a great relationship, which then led us to the Bridge,
Mm-hmm.
where our former youth pastor was the now senior pastor, and that's where we
Mm-hmm.
became the worship director, and I was on the board, and all of that lasted for about 4 years,
Mm-hmm.
and then it didn't end well.
And what? Yeah, that's a whole nother podcast, right?
It is, yeah.
The ministry within the ministry. But when were you touring? What was that like?
So in 2004
Mm-hmm.
is when I did most of my touring.
Mm-hmm.
Before 2004, we did some short legs and stints out on the road, but they were super short. My longest time on the road was with Dunamis, Dunamis, Manifestation of Divine Power,
Mm-hmm.
which was a band that I, just kind of happened to land on. And there's a lot more that we could go into it, but ultimately, we were promised a record deal, and so we went out on the road, and we were promised we needed to complete 35 shows to get a record deal, which we were like, okay, yeah, sure, sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
And our manager said, hey, I have you booked at, I believe it was like 25 universities and colleges across the country. And the other amount needs to be either in churches or other venues that you meet along the way. So you do the 25 and fill in another 10 as needed.
Mm.
And so we're like, all right, sounds good. So we got on a bus that should have never left Arizona, and we started driving. And we got to California, Northern California, and our manager, we're about to do our first show. I'm pretty sure this is how it went. Either way, we were in Northern California. Did I say Northern California?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. Because there's also Northern Nevada, which is a fun one as well. But Northern California, he messages us, hey, we just lost all of the college and university dates. And we're like, we lost 25 shows? He goes, yeah, you're just going to have to figure it out. Don't come home. You have shows in, Northern California, Nevada, Oklahoma, and Florida. Those are it. You have to fill in the rest.
Ouch.
And we were like, oh, cool. Okay. It was all supposedly because we weren't carrying the right insurance policy, which I'm pretty certain we didn't have any insurance policy. And so we did the shows. We did 35, came back, thought we were going to get signed because in 2004, 2005, that's what you did as a band. You tried to get signed and make your way. And we didn't. We didn't get signed. And there's a whole another load of stories that go along with that. But we ended up, on the road for an unbelievable amount of time, and we made tens of dollars.
Yep.
So we came back and basically got a $250 check. I was like, good job, guys. You did it. And that was that.
Yeah. That's a whole teaching on, the music industry is kind of difficult. If you want to be a musician, it's not all glamorous.
It isn't.
So, so that transition, so you're in churches, you're working in worship, different capacities, you're playing music. Then at some point there's some move from music into like, oh, I've got to actually make an income. So how did that transition look? And at what point did you kind of move from church ministry into not only the digital work that you do, but more specifically, even like working for yourself, being an entrepreneur?
That kind of accidentally happened. So we'll backtrack a little bit because all I ever wanted to do was something creative. So it didn't necessarily matter to me when, my wife and I were working for Hot Church. All I wanted to do was be creative there. And so, I had a camera that I had access to. YouTube wasn't around. None of this social media was around. But all I wanted to do was be creative, whether that was playing music or behind a camera. My first camera was that I got from my grandpa was when I was 5. And so I jokingly say that I've been a content creator since I was 5. But really, like, we're all creators in some capacity. And so it just, can you reframe what you said? Because I lost my train of thought.
Yes. Where did you, at some point you transitioned into kind of working for yourself.
Okay.
So
yep.
You had a camera, you wanted to be creative, but at some point you had to make a jump. You had to try something. Was that when you started doing photography for a company, or how did that all happen?
Yeah. So my wife and I, when we were working for The Bridge, she went and hung out with some friends of ours that we met when we were going to Cornerstone, and they were a husband and wife photography team, and they did weddings. And so she went and hung out with them, and I don't really know how it all transpired and why she went to hang out with them. But she came home and was like, will you start a photography company with me? And I was like, yeah, let's do it. And so we ended up buying a camera, and we started taking lifestyle, newborn, portrait work. We did one wedding, and that was awful. And so we never wanted to do another one. But we just, again, my wife's a creative too. We just wanted to be creative. And eventually my wife was like, I'm really tired of, the requests of people. We started a family, and she just wanted to be with our kids. And so she was like, I don't really want to take pictures of other people anymore. And I was like, great, we've got this really expensive camera. What do you want to do? And she's like, nothing. I'll take pictures of our kids. And I was like, that's not going to pay us anything.
Right.
And so we had this camera. And right around that time, I really liked the idea of taking pictures of houses. And YouTube, we got married in 2009. So 2010-ish is when we started doing stuff. And so around that time, my wife's best friend was flipping houses, like $1 million houses in Paradise Valley with her then boyfriend. And she was complaining about paying $1,000 for 10 photos to a house that she wanted to sell. And she's like, how am I supposed to sell a house with 10 photos? And I was like, hey, can I come and take pictures of your house? I actually think that I could do it. I've never done it before, but I think I can. And she was like, yeah, come on over. And so I went over, and I had, a Canon 5D Mark II. I knew how to bracket the shots, but I didn't have like a speed light or any kind of flash. So it was all bracketed shots that may or may not mean anything to you. But I went there, I photographed it, and I met her boyfriend who handed me $200. I was like, thank you so much for, coming here, and handed me $200. And I was like, oh, I think I can make money doing this. And fast forward a couple of days, I returned the photos back to them. They loved them and sold the house sight unseen to an out-of-state buyer. And
you were hooked.
I was hooked, and so were they.
Yep.
And so her boyfriend called for a meeting and was like, hey, how about this? We'll pay you $500 to come and shoot every house we do. And if it sells in 30 days, we'll pay you a bonus. And I was like, okay. And so if it sold in under 30 days, it was a $500 bonus. If it did 45 days, it was, I think, $250 or $300. And then after 45 days, if it didn't sell, then it was just the $500.
Yep.
And I was like, sounds good. And so we went with that for a long time. And I did that for a while. And right around the same time, one of my friends from my worship band times called me and was like, hey, does your camera do video? And I was like, I don't know. Let me call you back. And so my buddy, his name's John Lloyd, who's a worship leader for a church called Harvest. And so I figured out that my camera did video. And I was like, yeah, dude, it does. And he was like, my church wants to pay you to do our video announcements, and we'll buy you a computer. And I was like, I don't know how to do any of that stuff. And he was like, cool, can you learn? And I was like, for sure. Like,
yep.
Sign me up. And so he's like, we've got a green wall at the church that we can green screen. You can key out everything. And so YouTube University, trying to figure out how to do it. And so once a month, I would drive all the way out to East Mesa from Central Phoenix, and I would record all of their video announcements for the month, and then I'd deliver them back via Dropbox. I never had to go there except for on baptism days because they wanted cool video for that. And so we did that for a long time until that church was absorbed into Sun Valley. And once it was absorbed by Sun Valley, they had their own team, and that was it. And right around the time that announcement, gig with, computer and $600 a month, my friend came to me and was like, I want to do video work with my custom furniture company. Oh, I've got this idea for these videos. Will you come and, drop a contract? And so we agreed to a contract, and we started creating videos. I was working for GoDaddy at the time, and I took every Tuesday off from GoDaddy. So I was able to go into our internal system and select every Tuesday and request it off, and it always got approved.
And that's kind of an important point for entrepreneurs or people growing a business, is to make the point that you had a quote unquote, real job. I don't want to say it that way, but you had a quote unquote real job that you were working while you developed this side gig.
Yeah. And I always, even when I was in ministry, I always had a side gig too. It was never full-time. I always wanted to be full-time in the church. And it never happened. Yeah. It was always part-time, which was really
that's a lot of people's experience though.
Yeah.
And even more so now, which I think is why, a conversation like this about getting into entrepreneurship and the kind of ministry that you do now, what you experience now is really important, because it's just significantly more difficult to be paid as a full-time ministry person.
Well, I would say that even my philosophy now as a, I'm let's just say 25 or a little bit more than 25 years into my walk, it's proven over and over and over again that the church itself shouldn't have any full-time employees. And that might be a little bit further down the road of a discussion in this capacity right now. But like, I firmly believe that we as people in ministry, our ministry shouldn't entirely be the church. Because I think, one, you lose sight, but also I think it can lead to a lot of corruption in the capacity of like, where's all the money going? Which I think is a deeper conversation for maybe another time. But like, I do think that we actually should all be doing something different. And I actually think that we should all be entrepreneurs. I think that our success is directly tied to what we create, and we are created by the ultimate creator, and we are always so much more fulfilled when we create something, like where we're sitting right now. Even though I feel like I don't know what I'm doing, it's always a whole lot more fun and enjoyable to actually create something and do it, even when we don't know what we're doing.
Can you pause for a minute and will you share a little bit about what you're doing, like where we're sitting, what you're developing, the creative idea you've had, before I get really into, more thoughts about ministry and what that looks like as an entrepreneur. Well, so where are we sitting and what are you doing?
Well, let's backtrack a little bit because so I started doing the videos with my friend who owned the custom furniture company. And about 2 months into it, Stephanie, my wife, looked at me and said, "You are a different person on Tuesdays." And I was like, "What do you mean?" She goes, "You come home happier. You come home more fulfilled. You just radiate excitement." And how do we do that every day? And so with that, around the same time, I was like, well, I don't know how we do it, but let's try to figure it out. And shortly after that conversation, my friend texted me and was like, "How do I get you here full time?" And I was like, "Just pay me enough to keep my wife at home with our kids." And he understood that because we homeschool our kids and they homeschool theirs. And so he was like, "Absolutely." We actually just lived right down the road from each other. So it was really easy for that. And so he came over and we drew up a contract, and I did that for a long time.
Yeah. That's some good godly timing right there.
For sure. And right around the same time that picked up, Sun Valley came in and absorbed Harvest. So that eliminated that gig. And so I was able to transition to managing their social media full time, and creating YouTube videos for their YouTube channel, and just going in that direction. So really like an answer to prayer in the capacity that like I was always like, "God, please get me a creative job in the church." And it was almost like he was like, "No, I want you in a creative position outside of the church. You can do more work outside of the church." Because I tend to believe that if you are working inside of the church, you are only relegated to the congregation that you help.
Right.
Especially in a creative role. There's very few creative pastors that are able to go and do it in a larger capacity.
Mm-hmm.
A friend of mine started the Outcry tour, and they did that for a season. And he was a pastor, and he was a creative, but like he was more behind the scenes. And you tend to see worship leaders making their way around the country, but you don't see, video people, or the creative team at the church,
right,
traveling around,
right,
ministering to other creatives and stuff like that.
Yeah. You're talking about like a mobility that the job kind of implicitly doesn't have because you're only serving a specific congregation,
right? And so you're stuck, and
that didn't feel good to you.
No, well, so it's changed because at the time when I was in that world, that's all I wanted.
Right.
And now that I'm out of it, I'm like, no, I have so much more reach with the capacity of work that I do now. And I get interactions with more unchurched people.
Right.
And also in the same token, I get to work alongside other people that don't believe the exact same thing I do. So, like when you're working inside of the church walls, you're talking to, you have confirmation bias. You're talking to the same people every week. You're interacting with everybody that was already there last week. Very few people are coming in unless you have a really rapidly growing church. It's pretty stale in the grand scheme of things. You can do creative things. You could put new lights in. You can get a different fog machine. You can get new cameras. You could do your video announcements a little bit differently. But in the end, you're working, 7 days a week for that one ministry, and you're just moving from Sunday to Sunday.
Right.
And all right.
So let's get back to how you were talking about the opportunities that you have are just significantly more if you're not, tethered and anchored to a local church, which again, as you stated, and I think it's important to note that you're not even being negative necessarily. You're just sharing your experience, because I think what people have to remember is for such a long time, all you wanted and all many of us wanted was to be full-time in a church.
Yeah.
That was like the apex. That was like the I've arrived moment. I'm a full-time minister at a local church. I've made it. This is the ultimate end to anyone who ever wanted to minister or pastor. But you're in your journey, as you stated, you felt like God was maybe saying, yeah, I hear you. You want to be creative. I designed you to be creative. But he kept bringing you outside of the church. And that's kind of where I want to get into your experience in entrepreneurship, even as a calling, as you now understand it and as you now have embraced it. You are an entrepreneur. You are running and developing businesses. You are being creative all the time, every day. And how has your sense of calling changed, or how do you kind of view that now? That because this is who you are,
right?
Again, as we stated, we're sitting in your mobile podcast trailer, which is an idea you're developing.
Yep.
And so, how are you? Again, how do you? Because calling is a big deal. A lot of us struggle with that. We struggle with like, how am I made? What am I supposed to do? Am I doing what you wanted me to do, God? Can I mess that up? Am I missing the mark? I mean, we've all struggled with those questions.
Yeah.
So again, as you've kind of grown through it and gotten to this point, tell us a little bit how you understand that calling and how you're answering it. And,
Well, so at the very root level, a lot of people get really caught up in what God wants them to do. What is my calling on my life? And really, the answer to it is go and tell as many people about Jesus as humanly possible. And that's it. Like, we don't need to do anything else. Like, I don't need this trailer to do that. I don't need I don't need the church to do that. Like, the lead singer from 10th Avenue North, Mike Donahue or Donnelly. His first name's Mike. I know that. I've met him before, very briefly. Very, very genuine guy that I really like what he says, because a lot of people will be like, how did you know that God called you to be a musician? And he's like, I'm going to butcher it. So Mike, if I mess it up, I'm sorry. But like, he's like, God didn't call me to be a musician, because like, what if something happens to me and my voice doesn't work anymore, or I get in an accident and my hands don't work anymore, so I can't play guitar anymore. If my calling is rooted in what I do, then if something happens that I can't do that anymore, then I am ruining my ability to do my calling.
Mm-hmm.
And so I take that pretty literal in the sense that like all we're called to do, our purpose in life is to try to win as many people to Jesus as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And whether that's within the church or outside of the church, the church isn't the walls that create a building. The church is us. And if we don't, there's a lot of pastors that do a really bad job of living their life in a capacity of acceptance and grace outside of the church walls.
Mm-hmm.
When they're in their church, they're really good at being extroverted and personable. But if you catch them at a coffee shop or you catch them on a plane, they're really not. And a lot of them will tell you that, like, they're not really, they're not really approachable on just a personal level on a regular day.
Mm-hmm.
They store up all their energy for Sunday and they give it on Sunday. And then like, if they got to get on a plane Sunday night, don't hang out with me there because I'm not the person.
Right.
And that's because I have some personal feelings, but like we've asked too much of our pastors.
Mm-hmm.
And I certainly don't want that burden.
Right.
I don't want to be a pastor. And I think that God protected me from that scenario. Because, when we left the bridge, it was a really challenging time. Because it rocked our our church concept.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, your identity,
like it just image. Rocked my world. Mm-hmm. Not only because the pastor that I had met when I was 8 years old, who had become one of my closest friends, as an adult, just basically like said that he was going to leave the church and go and do something else that we'd worked so freaking hard to do. And I was like, you can't just tell us that you're looking at a different job at another church and we're just waiting for God to open up those. No. You're telling us that you're quitting. So you need to be done. That was my framework. And that ruined our idea of what church was. And so for a season it was really hard, and we didn't start going to church again until we started going to New City Church in Central Phoenix when we lived in Levine.
Mm-hmm.
So
that was a bit of a journey for you all.
Yeah. I wonder if you're going to be able to hear my stomach grumble. Because it's grumbling.
Thankfully, this is not a baking podcast.
But I am hungry. That would be something. Maybe we can get kitchen in here, and
there you go.
We can do a cooking show.
So I want to get back to, the feelings and the thoughts that you have about the work you're doing now, being connected to kingdom, being creative. I'm going to put some words in your mouth, but I want you to talk a little bit about your belief about doing, being a creative that's doing really beautiful work, doing excellent work. Why does that matter to you? But again, getting to be God has answered your prayer about being creative.
Yes.
It may look a little different than what you maybe were asking for, which again, I think is totally a God thing.
For sure.
You're creative. I'm going to have you do it this way, not maybe the exact way you had thought. So you're getting to be creative. And again, how has that opened up doors of ministry for you even now? I think it'd be really interesting, even if you shared about, at the homeschool co-op, you've gotten the ability and the opportunity to teach different classes about doing digital media.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's amazing.
It's fun.
Mm-hmm.
It's fun. I would say that so this, but most of my clients are Mormon,
mm-hmm.
which I think is really funny, but I'm super selective about who I work with and who I align myself with. And it just so happens that a lot of times Mormons just do business really well for some reason. I don't understand why. Mainly, I would say if we're really trying to dissect it, I think it's because they don't allow their faith to dictate how they do business. So a lot of Christian businesses will lead with Christian business.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a Christian in business. And then they end up just doing crappy work. And Mormons, they don't lead with Mormon-led business. They just do business well. They're kind. They're generous. They underpromise, overdeliver. And a lot of times, I really don't think that what I do is all that great.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's just because I'm a creative that wants to do the best that I can. And when I'm doing it, I feel like I'm failing
mm-hmm.
miserably. That used to happen when I would be driving to a concert to play or driving to church on Sunday morning to lead worship. I'd be like, I don't even remember the songs.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times I'll be driving, today being one of them, driving here in this trailer, not in the trailer. I was pulling the trailer in my truck and I was just thinking, I suck.
Mm.
I suck. And I know that a lot of business owners do that. A lot of people often think that they suck. And I think it all the time. And it is negative self-talk for sure. But also I think that it is what kind of fuels and pushes us to do our best. And so for me, I don't ever talk about my faith unless there's a really clear opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't want to just lead with it as if, I feel like my ministry in the capacity that I serve now is doing the best that I can while still thinking that I suck at it, but doing the best that I possibly can. And then if the opportunity comes, I'll do it.
Mm-hmm.
I'll open up. Example would be the other day, we were outside, kids were playing basketball with the neighbors, and we have some new neighbors who we know are church attenders.
Mm-hmm.
They go to a different church, and I don't know the capacity of their faith, but I started to share our philosophy and our faith with them. And I know we're on different sides of the aisle. But I wanted to start unlocking that, because I know that our kids are going to, if they don't move or we don't move, our kids are going to grow up together. And I do know that even though their kids go to faith-based schools, the schools that they go to are different than the way that we believe. And so I know it's going to be different. And I want to share the truth, because I do believe that the Bible is truly the Word of God. And so we try to follow that to a T. And a lot of people obviously, manipulate the words and manipulate the beliefs. And so, I started to share that, but they knew we were Christians prior, but I'm sure didn't know everything.
Yeah.
And I kind of unpacked a little bit. I didn't unpack everything. But I unpacked, my philosophy on why we homeschool. Because I feel that it is important for our kids to get the foundation of the Bible wholeheartedly, so that when they enter the real world, they are not shook by the let's see, what's the word? They're not shook by the crude way our world is. I also we homeschool so that our kids can become business owners and leaders and all of that. I don't want my kids ever punching a clock. And if they do, I want it to be for something that they want to do, not something that they have to do. Because I think we're fully capable and able to create our own way of making money.
Yep.
And that leads us to where we're at, where we're sitting now. So, for the last basically 10 years, I've been working on and managing YouTube channels. We shoot, edit, and deliver content to YouTube multiple times a week. We deliver content to Instagram and all other social platforms multiple times a week. And at the end of 2024, I had this idea to start offering podcasting to the businesses that I work with. But one of the things that I kept on running into, even though I bought the mics and I had the cameras and all of these different things, I kept on running into a scenario where the business owners that I was having conversations with, they kept on saying, well, I don't have a space. I don't have an office to do the work in, or I don't have space in my office to, set up cameras and lights. And I said, hey, I have cameras and I have lights and I have this podcasting equipment. Like, I'll come to you and set it up in your office and do it. And he's like, but, several of them were like, but where would we do it in the office? Like, where's it going to look cool to do it? And I was like, well, I don't know. Let's figure it out. And there was always that hurdle of, I don't know where to do it. And this little bug started kind of picking away at me of like, you need to solve that problem for the people that you want to work with. Because there's a lot of people that want to have a podcast, but a lot of them don't have the means to do it. And the means being the space, the cameras, and all of that. So we started talking about it, my wife and I couldn't let it go. And so I started investigating Sprinter vans. And I really, really, and maybe someday it'll happen, but I really wanted to do a Sprinter van build out where it would be a whole lot easier. It's just all one unit. But my idea was to be able to pull up anywhere and do a podcast with anybody and have them walk in and walk out. It's called Mobile Podcast Trailer, and the tagline's where podcasting comes to you. And that's where we're sitting right now. And so a couple months ago, I started having a conversation with a potential client who has now become a client. And I told him about my podcasting idea. And he goes, "Oh, dude, don't do a Sprinter van. Do a trailer. You have a truck. You can pull the trailer with your truck." And I was like, I've never driven a trailer before. Again, going back to, all of my life, I didn't know how to play bass. But the next day after getting a bass, I had practice. I didn't know how to do video, but my camera did video. I figured it out. I didn't know how to pull a trailer. So we started having to figure that out. And so while I was investigating trailers, I messaged the guy on Facebook and I was like, "Hey, I'm interested in your trailer." And he was like, "Oh, I don't have that one anymore." And I thought it was just a normal dude, just like a guy like you and I, just selling a trailer on the side of his house or something. And he was like, "But I do have a couple more." And so I went and I had this itch that I couldn't let go of. It just kept on nagging me. Go look at this trailer. Go look at this trailer. And so I was just like, all right, well, I don't know what trailer I'm going to look at, but I pull in and it's a trailer lot. This trailer sales lot, like car dealership, trailer dealership. I didn't even know they had them. And I walk on the lot and I look at this trailer that we're actually sitting in right now. And I look on the front and there's a AC unit on it. And I was like, I need an AC unit.
We live in Phoenix.
Yeah, we live in Arizona.
You better have an AC unit on your mobile podcast unit.
Yeah. By the way, trailer's black.
Yeah.
Maybe I should have done that differently, but I didn't have a choice. The trailer was already built. So I open up the trailer and I walk in and it's done on the inside. It's stark white, sterile as can be. But I look at this thing and I'm like, holy crap, this is it. This is a space. And it's funny because I always am like, I can never envision things before they're actually, done. But I walked into this thing and I was like, nope, wall will go there. And I'll put sound paneling on the sides and we'll put a rug right here and we'll put 2 chairs and we'll sit side by side. It'll be tight, but it'll be cool. And it just started coming together. And, I have my business and I'd never taken a loan on anything. But I did not have the means in my bank account to just run all of this money. And so I got a loan for the trailer and got a credit card. I just started spending money like it's going out of style. And the intention is to be able to pull up and have conversations like we're having right now. But the intent is that I would actually be over there outside of the camera shot with my desk and all of the audio recording gear. Basically,
you'd be acting like as the engineer director.
Yeah, the director of it. And 2 people, essentially my clients would be sitting here recording a podcast. And, we'll see how the audio turns out, but we've got a brisk 62 degrees going on here. It's nice. And I feel like it's pretty darn quiet. And we're plugged into your house right now, but I do have a generator just beyond here that I've tested. And the idea, the way that we've figured it out to operate the best, to have the noise be furthest away, is to pull the generator out and wheel it to the front of my truck and run the generator over there. Because even though I bought the quietest generator that I could find, which was expensive, it still makes noise. And so if it's in the cavity where the generator box is, it's too loud and it would create vibration in here and rumbling, and you can even hear the airplane flying over right now, and you can hear cars come by. I think those things are okay, but the generator noise, I think, would be distracting, and I don't think that AI software has come far enough to be able to edit out that noise enough to where it sounded decent. And so there's some, things that I've had to pivot on, ideas like this right here, this setup, the way that we're sitting is a little tight. I may switch it to basically where my camera is right here. We sit diagonal from each other. So I extend the walls even further. These acoustic panels are really sweet. You see them in every other podcast, but I wanted them to be black instead of that standard brown. I wanted it to be unique in a way, with this little, like
border,
a chair rail. Yeah, chair rail around. And as we progress, I'm going to add more soundproofing and stuff, so it gets a little bit more dead in here. But overall, we're sitting in, the dream that I had a year ago of offering podcasting to my clients. And I've done two other videos in here already. But obviously this is the first podcast in the trailer in its full capacity.
I love it. I'm glad we're able to do it. And so in your story, as you stated, but a lot of it has been like, yeah, I'll figure that out. Yeah, I'll do that. What part do you think God has played in that story? Like you said, you had a nudge, you had an itch that you couldn't shake. Was that the Holy Spirit? Was that a nudge from the Lord? And then to piggyback on that, I want you to talk a little bit about like, what would be your encouragement to someone listening who, wants to take that step of faith, wants to be creative? Talk us through that.
Yeah. So, in the role that I serve as husband, not only did I have to have the urge and the pushing of, I would say, the Holy Spirit, I also had to have the confirmation from my wife. And it's pretty funny because I kept on talking about it all year long. And, seriously, just like 6 weeks ago, probably, Stephanie looked at me and she goes, just go buy the trailer. Like, I've never, we've been married for almost 17 years. I've never seen you so stuck on something and so invested in pursuing it. You need to go and actually do this time. And to backtrack a little bit, when I was working for my friend's company that did custom furniture, I was creating content every day, but I kept on feeling this push to do something a little bit differently. And he gave me this phrase called "create before you consume." And when he gave that to me, it was like this little blessing. I've always thought that we're all mental, meaning like everything that we do, it is dependent on what you say to yourself. So if my son, if he speaks negatively about himself, I say, yeah, that's self-fulfilling prophecy right there. Like if you keep talking like that, for sure, that's the way it's going to go. And I've, for several years, I've 20 years I've thought about writing a book called We're All Mental. Because we are.
You were in the middle of saying we're all mental. And that was in the context of, I was saying, how would you encourage, how would you encourage someone into being creative? And I think you were going down a road of positive self-talk, believing in yourself, believing who God made you to be. But I think if you can try to head down that thread, and then we could wrap it kind of up with the encouragement of believe in who God's made you to be. And
yeah. Okay. So to make it really, really simple, to just simplify it, because number one, we already know our purpose is to just tell people about Jesus and go and make disciples, right? So that's our purpose, hands down. Now, if you are a person that feels like you need to be creative in what you're doing, because that's the way our world is these days. Everybody is a videographer. Everybody's a photographer. Everybody's a content creator. If you are feeling led to be in the creative space, you have to spend time talking to yourself in a positive way that allows you to not only be, you have to create a sense of urgency in what you're doing, but you also have to give yourself grace. So don't spend all of your time in the world of negative self-talk, but also don't spend all of your time in the world of thinking that you're perfect and that the grace is just all that you need. Because I would say you need grace, and you need to give yourself grace, but also you need to hold yourself to a higher standard of accomplishment. Example would be this trailer is not yet in perfect operation. We learned that today when I got here. We've never done anything like this before. Me and my company, we've never done this. And like I said earlier, that's pretty par for the course on my life. I think that the only way to actually get into something is by doing something that you don't know how to do. I didn't know how to GC adding a bathroom to my house, but I did it. I didn't know how to play bass when I started. It's not like I went and took bass lessons. My dad was a bass player, so maybe I had a little bit of an advantage in the sense of my dad was able to listen to the song that I needed to learn, and then teach it to me. But I didn't know I didn't know what I was doing. When we drove out of Arizona in our bus to go on tour, we thought that we were going to be getting 32 miles a gallon on our propane powered bus, and we were getting less than 10. I want to say 3, but that might be wrong. We made it across the border. So the first time that we ever drove our bus, which by the way, we renovated with 2 couches, a love seat, a refrigerator, a home stereo system, which by the way, a home stereo system should not be on a bus. But you can't play any CDs on a home stereo system when you're driving on the freeway in a bus. But the first time that we ever drove it was out of Arizona. Not only did we not know that the bus would not go faster than 55, we also did not know how many miles a gallon we were going to get in gas. But again, we made it all the way across the country and back. Because even though we did not know what we were doing, we still figured it out. And when I got I guess when we stopped recording, I forgot to continue on with this. God gave me the phrase, create before you consume. And I didn't do anything with it. We'll make this really short. I didn't follow through with that phrase because he put it on my heart to actually start creating content when I first woke up in the morning before I do anything else. Create before you consume. And I didn't follow through with it. And what ended up happening was I was listening to Gary Vee, which if you're in the world of social media, you know who Gary Vee is. I was listening to Gary Vee, and he had this lady on named Marie Forleo. And Marie Forleo, who I'd never heard of before, got the attention of Gary Vee. And I was like, oh, now I need to know who this lady is. So I'm listening to her. And Gary asked her a question, and she goes, you know what? What I do, what I follow is the idea of create before you consume. And at that moment, when I was listening to that podcast, it was like God just slapped me right upside the head and was like, I gave that to you. And I was like, well, you gave it to me. And I was going to do something with it. I was going to do it, God. And he goes, no, you weren't. So I gave it to somebody who would. And I don't know if theologically that's the right frame of mind, but in that moment, that was the last really big aha moment I had when it came to creative until this. And for a lot of years, I moved through with a little bit of frustration in the idea of that create before you consume being lost to Marie. But back to what I was saying.
Marie Forleo.
Marie Forleo has gone on to do a lot of different things. But in the end, when this idea came to me of this mobile podcasting idea, it was like God was just like, do this. And even though I continuously think, like I did on my way here, that I am not capable of this, I know for a fact that God has me and my best interest at heart. And if this fails, he's got something else for me. But what he wanted to do, and I think that this is entirely true, he will give you what you're willing to step into. And so every step of the way, when I didn't know what I was doing and I still stepped into it, he was like, yes, I'll bless this. And so if I continuously step into the next venture, whatever it may be, if this podcasting thing really blows up and we need multiple trailers and stuff like that, like I'll step into it because I know that I am capable of following through on what God has placed on my heart. You know, this is not all that I know how to do. In fact, I would really like to own a porta potty company someday, but that's a whole nother conversation. I know that if I step into the door that he cracks open, that he's going to have me. And even if there's speed bumps or hiccups or stumbles along the way, that he's going to be there to follow through, and he has me no matter what. So in all, I think that if you are a person that wants to be an entrepreneur or you want to own a business or you want to start something creative, just go out and do it. If you don't know what you're doing, it actually benefits you. Because I know for a fact that Bob Gurr, who worked directly with Walt Disney, he was responsible for every single wheeled machine at Disneyland and Disney World. He designed and developed the monorail. When he is asked, how did you know you could do it? His answer is always, we didn't know we couldn't. And you have to be enough of an idiot to think that you can, but also know that there's a strong possibility that it won't work. But you have to take that chance, because if you create something, you are more fulfilled.
All right, so this last little bit isn't going to be perfect sound, but really, all in all, no matter what you do, if you enter into it through what God has placed on your heart, and you know that you're going to lean on Him and what you do through Him, it is possible. Even if it doesn't work out monetarily speaking, it actually doesn't matter, because every step of the way, you are not only getting closer to Him, but you're also getting closer to the person that He has called you to be. And so if you are a creative, if you desire to be creative, and maybe you're working a desk job, a cubicle job, you're answering phones all the time, and all you want to do is be creative, just step out and step into it. And also know that you have the time to do it. You just have to prioritize it. If you don't prioritize yourself in this equation, then you are continuously going to be stuck.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't take the time to improve upon what it is you want to do, then you will forever be stuck doing something that you don't want to do. So that's that.
I think that's a good exhortation and benediction for our time together. And thank you so much. I hope, imagine we'll do it again. And I will also link and post some ways that people can check out what you're doing with the trailer, check you out on Instagram, YouTube, all those things. But yeah, I wish you the best of luck. And obviously I talk to you every week, so get to hear more about it soon. Thanks so much for sharing some of your life with us and some of your wisdom, and appreciate it so much.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
All right, let's do it.
Later.
See ya. Thanks for listening. If you've enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with another pastor or ministry leader who you think might benefit from this conversation. And if you're looking for more tools and resources to help you preach and lead with confidence, be sure to check out sermoncentral.com/podcast. Sermon Central is the largest online resource hub for pastors and ministry leaders. From illustrations to outlines to media, you'll find everything you need to preach and lead effectively. So check out sermoncentral.com/podcast, where you'll even find a special podcast listener discount on our membership pricing. Check it out and stay tuned for our next episode.